here. Secret society, take the Freemasons. The vast majority of Freemasons are on the bottom 3 levels of degree, the blue degrees. They never get any higher. They haven't got a clue what's going on up there. And, I've talked to Freemasons. I talked to a Freemason, and I read a book by another Freemason in America who had gone through up to the top. And as he was going up, he was getting everything. His lodge, the head of his lodge, said to him, "You should apply for this job." And he said, "Well, I don't think I'd be good enough for the job. I don't think I would get it." He said, "Just apply for the job." He said, "I turned up, and this is about 3 or 4 of them, and they were taking this exam for the job." And he said, I finished mine ever so quick, and I was done." He said, they were struggling. And he said, I got the job. And he said, "I learned later, I didn't have the same test they had." So this is how it's done. This is how they place people. Anyway, he goes on, and eventually he ends up, place I've been outside of it, but although it does let tours in every now and again. It's the 33rd degree of Freemasonry Supreme Headquarters, just down from the White House in Washington. He turns up there for his 33rd degree initiation. And then his friend's being initiated, and he said, he didn't say who they were, but he said there were former presidents and there was a big Christian leader all in the bloody ceremony, right? And this 33rd degree, and they were giving this 33rd degree initiation to these people. He said, a friend of mine, he said, "I'm told I'm going higher," right? He said, "What do you mean? We're at the 33rd degree. You can't go any higher." And he said, this guy left by a different door than him. And what it is you got the 33rd degree, you got the top of these secret societies, and even within the secret society, they believe that's the top. So many 33rd degree Freemasons all around the world. Oh, I've made it. And yet, above them is another exclusive pyramid, which are the people that are allowed to be in the real know. And even within the main secret society structure, they won't know that exists, never mind what goes on in it. That's where the real stuff is. And then you look at governments, universities, corporations, banks, whatever, and it's all compartmentalized concealment of different levels of knowledge. You look at a corporation. You've got the few at the top who know what that corporation's really about. They know what its real goal is. They know what it's part of. And as you come down from that corporation, you meet more and more and more people in it. And every time you take a step down, they know less and less and less of what they know. So then you take that spider's web globally, and you have 7.7 billion people in the world, all but a tiny handful, comparatively, are every day contributing to their own and their families' enslavement and global enslavement, while having absolutely no idea that's what they're doing, because they don't know how what they're doing in isolation connects with that, connects with that, connects with that, connects with that, to create a very different picture. And what I've done in the last 30 years is connect those dots. And then you realize what the direction of the world is. And I remember a guy who used to be a big person in Shell. I mean, he had a whole kind of country. And he came to one of my talks and he said to me afterwards, he said, "I've just realized so much about what happened when I was working for Shell." He said, "It makes sense now." Because he was a dot, even at a high level, didn't know how it all fitted together. And this compartmentalization of knowledge is absolutely vital for the whole thing playing out. Then you have the next level of, if you like, defense, which is what is happening in the world and to the world is so utterly, utterly fantastic and extreme compared with what people are told is going on, that there's this chasm that people have to breach between what they've been told to believe is going on, what they've been told to believe about how the world's controlled and governed, and how it's actually controlled and governed. And of course, when I started out 30 years ago, 20 years ago, that chasm in most people was so vast that I was the resident nutter. I couldn't go down a street in Britain without being laughed at. But what's happened now is that chasm has started to close, because, people have started to look at the world and say, I don't like the way this is going. And they have become more and more, not the majority yet, but we're getting there, more and more open to another explanation, because the old ones make no sense anymore.
Going back to 9/11, I was a Series 7 licensed stockbroker in America, but then I also had the options license. I was the options manager. So anyone who had to place an options trade in my office, I had to sign off on their ticket. I had the options certificate. So I had expertise in the options market, which is a small section of the stock market, very complicated, so the public wouldn't generally understand how options work. So when I was trading the stock market, all these bets came through before 9/11 in the options market. Average daily volume was down here every day for these airlines. And all of a sudden, people betting that the airlines were going to go down and they were going to make hundreds of percents profit. So I see this in the options market, and it actually makes headline news. The clip is still on YouTube. I will put the clip in the description box below this video if you want to see this. The newscaster says, all of these trades have gone through in the options market. Surely this must be the terrorists. This will be traced, and we'll get to the root of this.
Osama bin Laden did on the end of a phone in a cave in Afghanistan.
Then it completely disappeared out of the news. Years later, I'm in maximum security reading David's books. This is helping me piece it together now. This was traced back to an investment bank in the US that was tied right into the CIA. Now that, to me, just broke everything I believed in. Right there, it said that they knew it was coming beforehand, and David confirmed it in his book. But just to go back to what you were describing.
Can I say one thing very quickly?
Go for it.
When the 9/11 Commission reported, which was the official investigation into 9/11, it's the biggest fairy tale since Alice in Wonderland, that is. I mean, it's a joke. In this new book, I absolutely take it apart. It's begging for mercy by the end. But they ignore anything that would show that the official story is not true. And this trade stuff is that they kind of just touch on it. They don't want to really go into it because it's like you just described. It's like, so we're going to go into it, but to show we thought about it, but then we're going to pull out. And they said this: we have investigated, they said it in an American accent, like, we have investigated these trades, and we've got it to someone who's made a lot of trades, but he has no connection to Osama bin Laden. And therefore, it's not relevant to 9/11. I mean, you see what happens when you and this is why, and I show this in the book very clearly, Osama bin Laden came up almost immediately, right? Planes hit buildings, towers come down, bin Laden, bin Laden, bin Laden. What you do is you name your villain early, your fake villain, and that holds the perception. It's Osama bin Laden, and everything else then, there's no more investigation beyond it because we got the villain. And so you see that once it's bin Laden did it, even investigating that ridiculous trading anomaly in airlines was brushed aside because the people that were involved in it were not connected to Osama bin Laden. And Osama bin Laden did it, so therefore that can't be relevant. Just, once you've got that initial perception of what happened down, which is why it's belted out immediately, anything like this happens, then you've got control of the situation.
The other thing that the feds did was anyone that had anything to do with those trades in those brokerages, they went to them and interviewed them and then deputized them so that if they ever said anything to anybody, they would go in prison themselves. Wow. Yeah, that's how they locked that down. Now, going smack bang to the middle of the spider for a second, right. earlier you said that the people at the center of the spider are people that the public will never ever know about. So the people ultimately responsible for 9/11, are you saying that we will never know who those people are?
Deep in the rabbit hole. I don't want to go into it now because it's all in the book, but it's very, very clear that very key people that were involved in it, both in orchestrating it and then covering it up and, quote, investigating it, can be named. They can be named, and I have named them. And then you go deeper in the rabbit hole into these areas of deep in the shadows. But there are many people in the public arena who you can name because it's blatantly bloody obvious that they were involved. You'll see when you read the book why it's blatantly obvious. There's a connection between them all, yeah, it's possible, and it's vital. I mean, you know, not only did 3,000 people die initially on 9/11, look at all the loved ones whose lives have been destroyed. Look at all the people who died as a result of the sequence of events that started with 9/11. They deserve justice. And if people want to hurl abuse at me and demonize me for exposing it, well, they'll just have to do it. I couldn't give a damn.
Have you watched From Dust Till Dust on YouTube about the dust, the 9/11 dust?
Yeah, I mean, what's happening to those people? I mean, you saw the story the other day where actually Jon Stewart, who's a media personality in America, he made a speech to I think it was a congressional committee, Capitol Hill committee anyway, on behalf of the firefighters and the first responders who have been dying and suffering horrendous diseases as a result of what they breathed in from the dust. And now they've said the money's running out. You know, the money is running out. You spent $1 trillion frickin' dollars in Afghanistan. What do you mean the money's running out? Because when you're a psychopath, everyone in your sphere is a pawn to your psychopathy. So you use people, and then when they've done their job for you, not knowing they're doing it for you often, then you just hang them out to dry because they're not useful to you anymore. You know, that their usefulness is past. It's like Henry Kissinger talked about people being useless eaters. Anyone more of a useless eater than Henry Kissinger? Perhaps you'll put answers in a postcard, on a postcard, because I can't think of one.
I think Bush flew in with his environmental expert and they said, the air quality is fine, everybody needs to go back to work. And then all those people I think more died from the dust than they died from the incident.
Yeah, absolutely they did. And, people like 9/11 hero, Mayor Rudolph Giuliani was absolutely massively part of that. Everything's fine. Go back to work. By the way, I ain't going there. This is the Giuliani who, with others, allowed the steel to be rushed away at ridiculous speed to the point where, and this was actually in the New York Times, it ended up in scrap yards in New Jersey, and it was being prepared to be shipped to Asia for smelting to become someone's fridge. And this was actually described by the New York Times, a writer in the New York Times, who I think was absolutely shocked. There were building experts and engineers who were waiting for the digger to come down to grab some to move it over. And then they were running into the steel and trying to see and grasp anything that might give them an idea of how the buildings came down, which was not through fire and aircraft fuel for a start. Quite bloody idiocy, that is. And then they had to run because the digger was coming down again. This was described in the New York Times. If you can think of a scene that has more contempt for those who suffered on 9/11, but then again, we come back to it. They're psychopaths. And what is the trait? There's a thing called the Hare test, which is named after the guy who came up with it. And it's a series of character traits. And if you have enough, you're a psychopath. Right at the top, lack of empathy. And because empathy is the fail-safe mechanism of human behavior. If you have empathy, then there are limits to what you will do, because you're having empathy for those suffering the consequences of what you do. You delete empathy. There are no emotional consequences, no matter how extreme you are. That's what we're dealing with. And they were the people behind 9/11. But I don't leave it in the trigger as psychopaths. I name who the psychopaths were.
All of David's books are going to be in a link in the description box below this video.